we all want to improve public education. Everybody, regardless of party, regardless of affiliation, philosophy, and we all want to improve public education. That's true. It's a given. And we can argue over how much money is necessary and how much involvement the state ought to have or how much involvement the federal government ought to have. And that's, you could take the best and brightest teacher in the world from wherever school that he or she came from. If you drop them in a classroom of students who don't have parents to go home to, who don't have a good meal to eat, who don't have somebody to kick them in the tail and say, make sure you do your homework, it's going to be darn difficult to make sure that kid succeeds. The first thing we have to do as a state, before we get into all of these other issues, is to understand that until we get parents back involved in children's lives, it's going to be very difficult for us to succeed. Those students was on free and reduced lunch. Everyone. The school was 99% free and reduced lunch. Of those 22 kids that were in that class, 6 of them, this came right from the teacher to me, 6 of them did not go home or do not go home to a parent. Not 2 parents, but a parent. It's a grandmother or a grandfather or a foster parent or something. 6 out of the 22. There are kids in that class and that 22 kids that when they come and eat free breakfast, they have to stop the kids from putting milk in their backpack to take it to class because they're trying to take it home with them. And they have to say, sweetheart, we'll get you milk. But if you put that in your backpack and leave it in there all day, it's going to spoil. You can't drink that when you go home. Those are the challenges that those students face. And it's through that prism that I try to understand public education. And so, but when it comes to education, of the 101 of us in the House of Representatives, probably 96 or 98 of us all went to a public school or private school. Everybody. There were only a handful of them that were homeschooled. So everybody went to school. And so everybody there thinks they've got the answers for public school. It's kind of like saying I eat at McDonald's 3 days a week and therefore I can run a business because of it. No, that's not exactly true, but that's almost what people think. So we get lots and lots and lots of ideas as it pertains to public opinions. A couple of the big things that are going on out there right now, and Joel's here from the State Department, we can discuss it more later, but we're in the process of transitioning over into the Common Core standards. And there was a big debate in Capitol yesterday as to whether we ought to go to Common Core or not. There are folks who adamantly oppose the Common Core standards and what that may mean for testing. There are other folks who say, no, this is the right way to go. But I want you to know that that train is on the track. The A through F grading system that was mentioned, I wasn't the biggest fan of the process when it was first implemented, but I do see a value in the A through F grading system. My caucus sees a value in that process. But in its first year of implementation, there were problems. I'll put it that way. There were problems. Now we're trying to address those problems legislatively. Representative Lee Denny in the House of Representatives has sort of championed that cause, and I think she's doing a good job trying to work with the State Department and others to make sure that what comes out is an accurate reflection of what really the schools are doing. In my district, in which the initial round of the A through F grading system, we had 0 schools that were focus schools. 0. Focus schools meaning they need extra attention, they fall below a certain standard. 0 that were focus schools. And that was great. And we were happy about that. And all of a sudden, they do some calculation changes for some reason. I don't understand. They did them. They took a whole set of schools, primarily from rural Oklahoma, and dropped them out of the A through F grading system. And when they did that, all of a sudden we had a focus school in my district. So day one, we didn't have one after the first grade. Then they changed a few things, adjusted some things, and all of a sudden now we've got a focus school. It's that kind of inconsistency that troubles us. And when you got a parent that sends a kid to a school, that when they hear from the principal, they're not a focus school, but then 2 days later they are. Why? We need to get to the bottom of that, and hopefully we'll be able to do that issue with A through F grading system. The parent trigger, I share the similar concerns that Ms. Abba shares. We've got some real problems there. My main concern there is, as someone who's a big proponent of public schools, is allowing for an out-of-state private company to come in and basically lobby parents who, in most cases, understand these are schools that are already struggling. So you can go to inner city schools whose parents are already detached, because that happened, we talked to go back to what we said, they're already detached from the system. They go in, somebody says, sign a piece of paper because it's going to make your kids better. They get 50 plus 1 those parents to sign it. All of a sudden, guess what? The charter school, the private company comes in, takes all that state dollars, and now you've got a for-profit industry running your public school system. That's a bad deal, in my opinion. And so, there, and hopefully we'll be able to, if not, in my opinion, either stop it or substantially changing. We'll see where we are, but that's working its way through. Mandates are a big thing. Representative Todd Thompson's got a bill. Representative Arthur Holbert from Muskogee has legislation. One would allow for essentially deregulation, allow school districts to come through and deregulate from some mandates that are currently on the books. And another one would require any new mandate that's passed out of the legislature to have funding with it, to actually have a line item funding with it, which I'm fully supportive of. Because we at 23rd and Lincoln tell folks all the time what they ought to do when it comes to common education, and we simply say, Doctor, wouldn't do it, and find the money to do it, and that's a bad way to run a school. And so hopefully we can get smart when it comes to mandates, but there's some legislation out there to kind of address that. Then the last thing, because a lot of the folks who talk about these things and others, is the issue of funding. Since 2008, public education in Oklahoma has taken a 20.3% cut. It's the third worst in the nation. Only Arizona and Alabama have taken a steeper cut as a percentage of their budget than Oklahoma has. That's a bad deal. And we were already poorly funded. 49th is not okay, right? So we were already poorly funded. And so we've taken significant cuts. What that looks like is about $220-some-odd million worth of cuts to common education since 2008. In that same time period, we've watched public schools lose $220 million and gain 31,000 students. Imagine if you're in your business and we say, I want you to service more people with less money. That's tough to do, and that's what we've asked our schools to do, and they've done it. They have done it. The superintendents in this room, the teachers, they've done that, which is incredible. But we've got to turn the train around. The last year, finally, the economy started coming out of the hole. The budget last year grew by $300 million. We had $300 million more last year to spend than we did the year before. And not one new dollar went into common education. Not one. That's a shame. This year, there's an additional $220-some-odd million over what we had last year. So if you look at it from over a 2-year span, we're about $520-something million more. And we are calling on, a bipartisan group of folks are calling on significant resources to be placed into common education. The superintendent called for about $300 million. $37 million of that is for supplemental funding, which we've yet, normally by this time in the legislature, we've heard supplemental talk. Here it comes, here's what we've heard nothing. At least my education guys heard nothing. That's a concern. But she's asking $300 million. Dr. Parisi and I don't agree on a lot of things when it comes to common education, but we agree that that's important. So hopefully we will be able to do that. $300 million is not going to happen. Maybe $75 million, maybe $100 million, that's possible. It's there. The money is there to do that, but we have to prioritize common education. Our concern is that there's talks out there about tax cuts. The governor's got a plan that would cut the income tax by about $120 million. At a time we've only got about $220 million worth of growth revenue. I don't understand how you can look at the people of Oklahoma and say, I'm sorry we cut common education 20%, but we've got enough resources to cut income tax at the same time. And that tax cut, by the way, would save the average taxpayer, maybe save the average taxpayer about $40 a year, the average family about $80 a year. I think most folks would rather see that money invested in common education, at least I would, and that's what we're trying to do.